Tim would look out on this gathering. He would say, "It's wild, it's wild." My family, my closest friends from near and far, the powerful, the ordinary, and the largest contingent of all in this room, those who think that they should be his successor on Meet the Press.
Eric, that was a lighter note from the memorial service on Wednesday for Tim Russert. What do you think about the coverage?
Oh, totally overblown. Totally understandable that people who knew him, the journalists who knew him, would want to grieve and mourn his passing, but a complete loss of perspective on where this should be in terms of a national story. It's really a low week for the media, I think, in that regard.
The coverage was almost 6 days. The JFK assassination and funeral was 4 days. This was a monument to the media's own sense of self-importance. Look at us. One of our gods has died. Let's have a never-ending funeral. And now we just hear that they're going to do some kind of retrospective in September.
Let me disagree on that.
All right.
Tim Russert was a friend of mine. I think he was a friend of other people on this panel. But I do think that it went on too long. But I went over to the event that was open to the public, and there were thousands of people there. He touched a lot of people. He had a good program. People are also writing now that he didn't do enough to question the administration in the walk up to the war. I mean, he was not a saint. But I do think that now that everybody's saying, oh, it was too much, it was media self-importance, in some way that program, which was a pretty straightforward program, connected, and I think that's part of why people are sad about it.
The interesting thing that I saw in the research that we did for this show is that he got more coverage than Peter Jennings did when Jennings died. And Jennings was a 5-night-a-week anchor who was at the top of his game, #1, been on the air for 20 years. Russert did 1 show a week.
But Russert had influence. That's the difference. The network anchors don't have influence in the way that they used to.
So Russert was more powerful than Brokaw, for
instance?
I think I agree with that. He's actually more of an agenda setter, and I do agree the coverage was overblown. But look, I think that anytime you see something this over the top, this much ritual, this much liturgy, Cal makes it almost sound quasi-religious, and I suppose it was. It obviously speaks to some need deeper in the people doing it than just like, oh, we're sorry the guy died. And I count myself as a fan. I TiVoed the show, and so on and so on. I think the need was, this is the mainstream media, the MSM, sensing that genuine end of an era.
Yeah.
That this is not when Walter Cronkite, who's still around, passes away. I mean, they're just saying, look, the era of broadcast television as the main news factor in American politics is yielding to cable, the internet, and so on and so on. And so why not take a moment here to do this 6 days of, as Sally Quinn said, this is bigger than John Kennedy.
Oh. It wasn't bigger than John Kennedy, but the fact is that show has been a window on official Washington with the limitations that has. It made millions and continued to make millions. It is a loss. It is not something that is dying.
Jane, why is making money for NBC something why we should celebrate?
You said it was something that it was the morning of the end of an era. Tim Russert was making, with a straightforward show, a lot of money, which is the criterion by which people say whether something is end of an era or not.
Brokaw joked about it there, but there is some jockeying going on at NBC to replace Tim Russert. Anybody have any guesses as to who might fill the chair?
We all know the names. I mean, Brokaw is probably going to be in there as a kind of a seat holder, a placeholder for a while, because he's got a brand name there. But Chris Matthews wants it. I mean, I'm sure the phone calls have already come in. But let me just pick up on one thing that Jim said. I agree with a lot of what was said here, but this was a recognition of a man who died at 58 of the media's own mortality. And this was an enormous group hug. All these people getting together in the Kennedy Center, and they're thinking, wait a minute, we've invested all of our lives and all of our talent and all of our hope that this is going to bring meaning and purpose, and we could die in a minute. This was a very important, even ethereal, as Jim said, quasi-religious moment for the media.
Well, the upside to the coverage is that it tells young people that if you go into journalism, you might get this kind of send-off. So I think there is going to be a positive.
Jane, you were at the wake. You want to tell us a little bit about the
well, it was just, it was just interesting because I looked back and I saw a lot of different kinds of people. I saw the man I stood next to worked for Catholic Charities. I saw Ralph Nader. I saw Phil Donahue. I saw teachers. I saw a lot of interesting people. I mean, I think there was a connection. That's the only point I'm trying to make. I'm not trying to sanctify the guy. There was a connection that was made through television.
All right. We're going to take another short break and be back with this.